Back on Halftime on ESPN Arkansas, ESPN 99.5. We get to give you our picks for Auburn and Arkansas in the next segment, but maybe we can have some of our minds changed here as we speak with the voice of Auburn football and men's basketball, Andy Beachum, joining us here on Halftime from the Plains. Andy, how you doing today? Is it raining there yet? You guys getting ready for this storm?
It is a steady rain at this moment, and of course my raincoat is in my car. Well, that was a good move on my part this morning, wasn't it?
I guess so. Well, hopefully you can stay inside for quite a while. So I guess we're expecting maybe we might be expecting a muddy game tomorrow. It's like old school football, actual mud, actual dirt being thrown in everybody's face. This could be an exciting game just because it's in the rain and the mud.
The playing surface at Jordan-Hare Stadium drains very well. They've got the proper drainage there, so I don't know if we'll get a lot of mud, but it could be a little slippery for the game on Saturday between Auburn and Arkansas. And it's supposed to rain most of the day on Friday and rain into Saturday as well. I don't know how much rain we'll get actually on game day. That forecast has changed somewhat as a result of Delta coming through. But it's going to be a little bit wet here in Auburn this weekend.
I think the top key that we've figured out throughout this week is which team is able to establish the run and maybe open up the pass game. And it seems that maybe things got easier, isn't the right word, but with Auburn losing KJ Britt to thumb surgery yesterday, put some pressure on a young group of linebackers to stop the run that I think Arkansas will try to establish. Do you agree that that'll be the top thing for both teams to try to do early in the game?
Well, it's been something that both teams have struggled with in the first couple of weeks, hasn't it? Auburn's only averaging 65 yards a game on the ground, and that's unusual for this Auburn team. And Arkansas, I think, figured to be a better running team than it's been in its first 2 weeks of the season as well. Auburn is thinner at linebacker, and not only did Auburn lose an all-SEC linebacker in KJ Britt, they also lost one of their leaders on that defense. I think of the four captains, and the team voted on that, he probably had more votes than anybody on the team. He is a very, very good leader on the field, and Auburn loses him now for probably a good amount of time this season. And Auburn had two guys opt out at linebacker prior to the season, including Chandler Wooten, who would be one of Auburn's keys there. So Auburn is thinner at the linebacker spot. And Zacoby McClain, who had the pick six against Alabama last year, will move in and take over for KJ Britt. Had a really good game, 11 tackles last week at Georgia. So he moves in and joins Owen Papo, the sophomore, freshman all-SEC selection from a year ago out of Lawrenceville, Georgia, who had 8 tackles last week at Georgia. All of Auburn's tackles a week ago at Georgia came from its linebackers and its safeties. And it will be very, very interesting to see how Auburn performs at the linebacker spot. And also, the linebacker isn't the only spot where Auburn's a bit banged up. Auburn did not have Jalen Simpson last week at cornerback. He was out after being named freshman of the week in the SEC after his play against Kentucky. Big Cat Bryant has not been full strength at defensive end for Auburn since the start of the season. So there's a little bit of a banged up Auburn team, especially defensively, as it gets ready for a much improved Arkansas team.
Let me ask about the situation on offense, because so much focus is on the development of Bo Nix in his second year as Auburn quarterback, but it's tough to develop when you're running. He was running around quite a bit last week against that Georgia defense, 28 pressures, sacked 3 times. And I know that Gus has talked a lot this week about trying to settle on what the offensive line is going to look like, and they've had to shuffle things around these first couple of weeks. This is a huge game for the Auburn offensive line, isn't it?
It is indeed. And to be honest, I'm not sure exactly who Auburn will start on that Auburn offensive line tomorrow. Brodarius Ham, who's been Auburn's starter at right tackle the first 2 weeks, left the game last week late against Georgia. We don't know how healthy he is coming in. And Auburn has been rather unsettled at left tackle between Alec Jackson and Austin Troxell. Troxell is a guy with a great deal of promise, but has had ACLs in the last 2 years and is just now getting back to full strength. So they did like the play of Keandre Jones at the guard spot last week when they lost Broderius Ham. Brandon Council moved from guard to tackle, and Keandre Jones, a redshirt freshman out of LaGrange, Georgia, moved in at guard, and they liked his play last week. Exactly, guys, who is going to start for Auburn up front, I'm not sure at this point. We'll find out probably in pregame warmups tomorrow. But Bo Nix was running for his life last week, and it showed in his performance. And he might have gotten a little bit frustrated with that game last week. And it'll be very interesting to see. Arkansas, through the years, has always been very good up front, and Auburn expects that it will try to put a lot of pressure on Bo tomorrow. So, I mean, if I'm Arkansas coming in, certainly that's something that I look to do is put the pressure on the Auburn quarterback. That's for certain.
Speaking to Andy Beachum here on Halftime, Andy, what's kind of been the vibe, the optics, the view that Auburn fans, the players have kind of had towards Arkansas, particularly coming after this Mississippi State victory? Because in previous years, Auburn's had no problem beating the Razorbacks, and it was just a different regime, different era for Arkansas football. Now coming off a Mississippi State victory, there's a lot of positives, particularly here with Razorback fans, and I think a lot of the media is starting to take a hold of this Arkansas team might be better than what we thought. What are the fans in Auburn kind of saying about this Razorback team?
I think the fans are worried. I think the fans would be worried about anybody coming in after last week's game against Georgia. And you take notice to what Arkansas did last weekend, going to Mississippi State and doing a good job of not necessarily stopping, but controlling the passing attack of Mississippi State. And that's a lot to say considering what State had done the week before at LSU and scoring 44 points and throwing for over 600 yards in that game. So there's no question from a fan's perspective. I know from a player's perspective, and I've talked to a couple for our coverage on the Auburn Sports Network. I mean, Arkansas has Auburn's attention, and not just because Arkansas won last week at Mississippi State, but just because Auburn struggled so much last week against Georgia. So Auburn respects Arkansas. Auburn knows that Arkansas is playing a better brand of football coming in. And, you don't get a week off in this league, and you don't get a week off in this schedule this year with 10 SEC games week in and week out. And Auburn knows it has its hands full with an improved Arkansas team coming in.
We obviously know the dynamic between your offensive coordinator, Auburn's offensive coordinator, Chad Morris, being here at Arkansas previously. And you've seen it's been publicized that some of the players they're going to have emotions on their sleeves. And obviously for Chad Morris being at Arkansas, now at Auburn, we've seen some of the players come out and say that. We've also seen some Auburn players come out and say that they're looking forward to playing for Chad Morris and kind of wanting to help him out kind of the same way these Arkansas players are wanting to do the same thing and kind of, I don't know what the right word is to say here, just kind of ready to show Chad Morris kind of like what this team could look like.
Right. You know what? I think that's understandable on both sides. I think Arkansas wants to beat Auburn. Arkansas wants to beat Gus Malzahn, who's an Arkansas native. They want to beat their former head coach in Chad Morris. And on the other side, I think this offense is going to go out and play for Chad Morris. They like playing for Chad Morris here. I know that the offense hasn't done exactly what they would want from a production standpoint in the first 2 weeks, but they like playing for him. They like the man, and they want to play for their coach. And I'm intrigued at some of the response from some of the media out there that they can't believe, one, that an Auburn player would want to play for a Chad Morris, or two, how badly Arkansas wants to beat Chad Morris. I think it's perfectly understandable on both sides coming into tomorrow.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of Arkansans even forget that some of the Razorbacks came here to play specifically for Chad Morris and then stayed here after he was let go. So, yeah, I'm sure some of them even think two ways about it. I want to ask about the situation with attendance at Auburn. And I know last week you guys were at Sanford Stadium. Did you believe the attendance numbers that you saw in the box score there? Because nobody seemed to believe that they were even at half capacity.
I don't know. I will say this, guys. The first 2 weeks, I've been surprised at the amount of noise for Auburn 2 weeks ago and for Georgia last week. For Auburn, it will be a little over 17,000. Those are the tickets that are sold. I don't know if the weather will have anything to say with how many folks attend the game on Saturday. Hopefully they're there. But just judging from week one, it was 17,000, and Auburn did a really good job of spreading the fans out all over the stadium, the lower bowl and in both the east and the west upper decks. And I was surprised just how loud that crowd was. Now, how much of that was the piped-in noise, I don't know at this point. I know it was loud last week at Georgia, and unfortunately for Auburn, Georgia had a lot to cheer about in last week's ball game. So that has been a pleasant surprise, just how loud the two stadiums have been. Now, listen, how much the rain tomorrow plays a factor? Boy, I don't know. That could play a factor in that one tomorrow. But they've done a nice job here at Auburn of planning for spreading the fans out in what is just a bizarre year for college football. I'm grateful that they're playing. I'm grateful to be going to the stadium tomorrow and going into that press box and saying hello to Chuck Barrett, a couple booths down, and just saying, I'm glad we're playing football. I'm glad we're getting to work and doing this ball games. But it is certainly different than any other year we've ever been through.
Definitely is. We'd heard that that the only tickets that are being sold, or at least that fans letting in, are Auburn students. Is that correct, or were we told misinformation?
Well, the first week it was simply Auburn students that were there. Now there are some high dollar folks in the suites and that type of thing. These are the general admission tickets that I'm talking about, and they offered tickets to the students again for this week's game, but there will be some more regular fans there, non-student fans that were offered tickets to this game. And there were some staff tickets that were made available that were not made available for the first week of games against Kentucky. So it will not solely be students in the stands tomorrow. There will be some other folks there, but primarily it's students for these, at least for these first two games. Auburn will not have another home game until LSU on October 31st. So there will be some time to rethink, the ratio of students to the regular fan base for that game.
The traditions have been cut short at Arkansas in many ways. I don't even think Tusk is allowed to be at the stadium. Does the Eagle still fly before kickoff at Jordan-Hare?
As I understand it, there are no live mascots allowed on the field this year. So Tusk can't be there. The Tiger couldn't be on the field in Baton Rouge. And the Eagle is not there. There is a virtual flight. I guess they show the flight on the big scoreboard, but no, Eagle does not fly. There's no Tiger Walk at Auburn. They've been doing Tiger Walks at Auburn since the 80s, and there's no Tiger Walk. They're bussing the team down to the locker room now. So there are a great deal of changes everywhere around the Southeastern Conference just for the opportunity to play football this season.
Well, and you put it perfectly. It's about the opportunity to play football and how thankful we are to be able to watch them do it at the same time. Traditions be damned, to be quite honest.
Absolutely.
Andy, thanks for your time. It's always fun talking with you.
My pleasure. Listen, this summer there was so much speculation. We do need to be thrilled that there are still games to cover. And I'm glad that Auburn and Arkansas are getting ready to play, even if it is in the rain on Saturday.
Absolutely. Hopefully, everybody here hopes the tradition of Auburn kicking Arkansas's butt doesn't continue, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. Andy Beachum, voice of the Auburn Tigers. Appreciate your time.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, Andy.
Got it. All right, we'll come back after the break. Smackdown, Matty T, you guys ready to make some picks here?
Let's do it.
Got some scores in your mind? All right, we'll do it after the break. Stay tuned. Cherry on the top, Arkansas-Auburn picks next.